Hello there and welcome to a video I'm recording on my lunchtime from work. This is about the very first map to be submitted to the Master League Map Competition 2021, and it's Bryansk Forest Tournament version by Vector. Now just a quick introduction to this competition for those that aren't aware, in case there's any budding map makers out there that want to participate. There's $100 up for grabs and it'll be featured in the grand final of an upcoming tournament. Sorry, let me just pause this so I can go back to talking about the important things of the map competition. We don't want any maps set in Western France farm kind of space. We want to try and be a bit more creative and bring something new to the tables in the scenario setting. We still want the same flow as these other maps though, similar line of sight, blocker distribution and that kind of thing. VP spacing should be even, so we don't have one safe VP. The resources should be 10 plus 2 high of both types. Elevation as little as possible. Garrisons can exist but don't be dominant over important points. Red cover should be sparingly used or not at all. And even point spacing, so you get like a nice chain of capping. I think that's very important. Green cover should be distributed equally and accessible to both sides, and lighting weather shouldn't be too extreme to maximize visibility. So we want a standardized tournament map but with creativity as a goal. This will be used in a grand final. So the very first map to be submitted to this competition, if we go down here, is by Vector, and I think it looks pretty good. Let's get straight into it, shall we? Let's see if I've still got that code. There we go. Just get my zoom hacks on, and let us have a little look. Very first thing we're going to do is look at the TAC map. It's got rotational symmetry like a lot of great maps have these days. You got your two cutoffs there and there, and I think the spacing between them is quite attractive, I must say. The rotationally looking there and there. Munitions are central, fuels are on the sides, and we've got a nice even spread of the victory points. Other standard territory sectors, we've got one safe standard territory sector per base sector, which I think is fantastic. And yeah, it seems like a good layout. First of all, layout check. I think we're good. I think it looks good to me at least. Now let's zoom in, shall we, and start assessing the areas of play. Or shall we do aesthetics first? Aesthetically, it is meant to be a logging farm, a logging kind of plant, and it's got this big railway tracks coming through the centre. I like the fact there's two of them, so it's not going to be confused with Amelie. And to be fair, with Nexus and Amelie already being railway inspired, I'm not actually against this one also being railway inspired, and I'll tell you why. Because so much of World War II was actually dominated by railway logistics, so it doesn't. If we have 3 tournament maps with railways involved, I don't think that's a bad thing. Now, one thing I'll bring to your attention is I don't actually think the theme is exploited as much as it could be. Yes, we have got these huge areas of trees, and from a default camera angle, that looks sort of like this. I don't see that as being a massive issue because the roads are just north of that. But I genuinely feel like we could see more log piles. Is it me, or I don't think log piles are on the map very much at all, to be fair. I would expect to see more of them if it's a logging plant. Yes, there's these ones up here and a couple of ones here, but as an aesthetic, I would expect to see more of them. Next is the roads, and as you rightfully said on Discord, you weren't happy with the spline usage for some of these roads, and I've got to completely agree with you. A lot of these roads aren't what has come to be expected and accepted in a Code 2 finished article map. You know, this KPen 97 is excellent at using splines, and I think your map needs a massive overhaul on road aesthetics, because right now this would not cut the mustard for like a relic level map. I mean, this one in particular, I know you pointed out this in your screenshot, so I know you know this is an issue, but if you see here, I mean, it just joins there with no splat for dirt, and then it goes straight into this. So that's spoiling the aesthetic of your map, and it's making it look amateurish when it shouldn't do. And I know this is a first draft or a second draft, so you've got a lot of room to improve the aesthetics there, in my opinion. But overall, so far, standard territory sector system, fantastic. Aesthetics, I can see where you're going, but it's nowhere near the finished article, in my opinion. Now let's talk fighting dynamics. Obviously, I've never fought on this map, but I've watched thousands of games, blah blah blah. I don't need to introduce myself. I'm just going to talk about how I could see the games going just based on my experience. And let's start with the base sectors. I mean, is it pinnable? There's the 2 cutoffs. I would say no, and I think there's loads of room to get out of the base sectors. Pinning's not a bad thing, by the way, but I think that it's got 4 base exits. It is reasonably small though. Let's go to default. Could you put... No, it's not small. It's perfect size. That's really good, actually. I quite like the space there. I've got more than enough to deal with. My tanks come from here. They come from there. I think I'm fine. I think I'm happy with the base sector. I want to make sure that these are shot blockers. I haven't got the SGA file. Can't go to World Builder and check myself, but I assume that they are. But if they're not, it's not the end of the world, quite frankly. I don't think it should be a dirty word in Company Heroes 2 if you can destroy your opponent in 10 to 15 minutes. That should show supreme skill. I'm battling out of here. Let's say you're this guy. Where are you going to cap first? So let's talk about capping chains. 1, 2. You see that this is a big thing for Co, and Loveness was the first player to point me out. If the capping chain doesn't feel natural, it makes people frustrated. So you go here, you go there, you go there. The one up here is great. Follows like a logical chain. The one down here, not so much. You go here, and then do you go there, or do you go there? Or do you go out here and come back for this and then go there? I think that's what you'd do, wasn't it? Capping chain is there, to there, to there, to there. So I can make that work, but I think you should consider putting that perhaps here maybe. Let me just zoom in to make sure I'm right there. Oh no, there's a big bush. Well, and that bush is in very close proximity to that. It's just something to consider, is all I'm saying. Come out here and go there. Wouldn't that be... that wouldn't connect it though, you see, because of this cutoff. Because that hooks round, doesn't it? Or does it? No, that's connected to there. So if you go there and you can go there, you're fine, aren't you? It's this one you wouldn't go to. Shit. So you see what I mean? I'm a little bit confused as to how it works. Go there. Get that. Get that. That works out. Does this cut everything off? No, it doesn't, because you've got that cut off as well. So that is the cut off and that is the cut off. Shit. But it is a nice system. But it just when you come to think about your capping orders, you just got to ask yourself questions of logically which way would you expect a player to go. Now I've looked at it twice, I'm thinking maybe something like that. Or maybe go there and come back to get the munitions. But this, going out this way, you're going to go there, there and there. And probably miss out this long penile obtrusion, wouldn't you? But yeah, it's interesting. And I'm not going to... I've just some food for thought there if you want to iron it out and make people feel like they're at home on it. Let's go to fighting areas now and think about the fighting areas. So, if I'm not mistaken, that's the high fuel. So, fighting for the high fuel, how does that pan out? I love the fact, by the way, that you've decided to block the houses off on this side, but I did notice that the rotational symmetry wasn't in place down here. So, the fuel here can't be watched over by that eye, see. And then this shed's useless anyway. Nobody's ever going to use it. It's got green colour either side. Not against it. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's quite interesting. I like the diversity. So, but anyway, fighting for this fuel. You're probably going to end up fighting here, aren't you? Because that and that is the cutoffs. Don't like how that isn't a round circle, by the way. It kind of goes a bit flat. You might want to make that circular. Just an FYI. I'm all about the small aesthetics. I think add up to make a fantastic map. And one thing I've noticed that you've done well is the angular aesthetics. And the logical conclusion of lines. So what I mean by that is, would this line, if a tank hadn't blasted through it, end up there? And it would. So you, like me, have gone the autistic route, which is not a dirty word in my books, and it's a fantastic thing to be, is you've watched your lines, basically. And the lines follow each other all the way through, which is great news, because that means you've already done a lot of the work that I always point out needs doing. Now, this isn't that logical, though. So, I mean, I'm asking you now, what's the point in this fence? And there you go, it ends. It doesn't end. So there's a logical fallacy. You need to fix this fence because it doesn't make any sense. A player will see that, or I will see that as a caster, and I'll be like, you know, what's the logic there, basically? The logical continuum of world objects. This one's a good one. Liking it. It kind of makes sense. Does it, though? Because it flows into these stone walls, and then you're like, why does it exist? So these fenced paddock areas, I think, are a weakness, and I'm not sure the reason for them fully. They make sense along here, I guess, but why is it a farmland aesthetic? I'm asking you that now. This makes sense as a farmland aesthetic, kind of, I guess. That's ploughed, and this is in the... I'd see what you're doing there. This has been ploughed, and this guy hasn't finished ploughing here. And if you look, guys, he's actually put the plough behind the tractor, which is cool. That's a hand-pushed plough, though. Behind a tractor, but it makes sense. It makes sense. It's fine. We'll cope with that. But so that's cool. then it continues, and then it goes big forest, and then it kind of stops. So I would say that this entire area is just illogical, and needs reworking, and I don't think it's a finished article, but you can go for it. Let's check the reverse of that. Now see here, I think this makes more sense. This is a bit more square. It looks more like a field. It's got the hay's been baled. But then I have to ask yourself, is this not meant to be a logging farm? Is this not all about forestry? Why have we got competing farmland, 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 farmland? So I know I was going to talk about the gameplay, but I've got to ask you, if it's Bryansk Forest and we're trying to get away from the rural farm feel, does it fit the criteria for you? I mean, I'm happy with one area being farm, but is 75% of this logging facility scenario is then actually farmland? I'm getting quite harsh now, I realise. But yeah, I do think it might play out quite well as a fighting area. Let's have a think, though. I want to have a think, and the reason I've gone to this angle is I want to have a think is how wide out open is this area? Is this going to be Wehrmacht OP? Wehrmacht just put their MG42s and their PaK-40s, and that is what map makers have to ask themselves. Have they created, or Brits even, with their Vickers and their 6-pounders, have they created a support weapon Nirvana? Is this going to really allow support weapon kind of orientation to thrive? And you come here, you set your MG42 up, or your MG34, and you're going to be watching from there to there. And the sight lines are rather well covered as well, considering if you fought for your fuel, you could set something else up here, and you're just watching that western approach. You've got the victory point locked down, and yeah, you'd absolutely dominate. Look at all that space, look at all that area. So what I would advise you, Vector, is to think of a map as, and people are going to cringe when I say this, but 3 lanes. You can have 5 lanes, 3 lanes, but you'll need intersecting corridors between them, of course. But you need something to block the flow, and to stop the flow being so chaotic, you need it to be to flow in a laminar state, not turbulence, but laminar. And in order to do that, imagine a map as flowing water from this side to this side. Right now, and vice versa from that side to that side. Right now, it's just going to splosh around. It's going to be all over the place, spray flying up, because quite frankly, there's not enough in this area and this area to break the play up. The orientation is actually going away from the direction of flow. Like this big, it's not a hedgerow, it's a tree. These trees, let's call them, then they should be at 90-degree angle perhaps, and maybe with just the road to break them up. But if you had the trees going to there and then finishing there, yes, you would cause a sight issue, perhaps. I'm not sure about that, but you might do. I mean, these are reasonable height, and they don't seem to cause that much of an issue. But why that would be great is because then you've got a huge flanking route going all the way around here, more so on this MG position. Because as it is, this MG position can see the flanking route. That's the one when I panned my camera down, wasn't it? And that can see up to there, it can see up to here, and it's just going to see too much. I mean, this flanking route is going to take forever, by the way. It's going to come all the way around here, and the MG, or Grenadiers, or the Pioneers near them can see them coming. The MG could reposition, or you could just bring your Grens up and stop the flank, basically. And it's too much, and there's going to be too much sight from this orientation. And the reverse is also true. From this orientation here, how are you going to be flanked? You have to go all the way around here. So this is exactly what I'm saying. All the way up here, Vector. And then by the time you're coming in for your flank, it's too late. It's too late. You can also be in this garrison. I'm not so sure why this garrison faces the centre when, well, this one does, I suppose. That one does as well. So the MG can just back up into there, can he? Yep, you can do the same here. You're facing this way, you're cutting that flank off. You're facing this way, you're cutting that flank off from that house there. And yes, it is cut off here, but basically what I'm saying is the orientation of the flow blockers, as I call them, it's not actually helping very much. And I would suggest turn it 90 degrees and like put it, so let me show you. So it's like that, something like that. If I had World Builder open, I could show you what I mean. And then this one, similar. I would continue that somewhere here. And yeah, you could have a break in the trees for this road to continue. I'm not asking you to destroy your road. Although aesthetically, as mentioned earlier, I do think you need to work on the spline usage to make the roads look more realistic. And I'll message K-Pen as well. He's great, K-Pen is. He's a graphic design artist, and he's very, very particular and anal about the splines in this game, and he's quite good. So I'd contact him. And I only know what I know. He's the person I've been talking to most about maps recently. What else? What else? Now, that's how I can see the gameplay going, and that's the first question I always ask myself. What else should we consider? I think that might be enough to be getting on with, isn't it? Isn't that enough, do you think, to be thinking about at this stage? Yeah, I think that's enough to be thinking about. It's a lot of aesthetics. It's a lot about how I would see the games playing out. I think it'd be too defensive orientated and not enough room for aggression. But the areas that are good, and just to end on a good note, I really love the fuel areas. The actual fuel areas, you know. I think they're really cool. I think the design aesthetic of this place and this place is great, but this and this is not so much. I think that's that needs to be ironed out. And maybe the way to go would be make it more trees and logs orientated somehow. You know, make it more so like this is the logging plant, these are the treed areas. And I'm not asking you to add more trees, just make it orientated around the idea that it is a logging plant. So yeah, somewhere I'm sure you could do that. Maybe put some logs down the side of the road, perhaps. A few log piles here, stack of log piles there maybe. Up on this side, I'd definitely do away with the farm aesthetic, or at least continue this farm so it ends maybe here. So you got one quadrant that's a farm, and then we could say it's not a rural map, it just has a rural quadrant. But yeah, I think it's got really good potential, Vector, and I'm here to give criticism to help the process. That's cool, by the way. I love this. Maybe you could actually increase the howitzers here. I would really think that's a cool aesthetic. Yeah, I think a couple more of these bad boys. That would look awesome. And yeah, you could have like a set piece kind of system there. Like a diorama, let's say. But yeah, it's cool, man. GG, well played, and looking forward to further iterations.